Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. Cohen, I guess I'll have you react at the outset to the breaking news that Alina Habba likely going to be the press secretary. That's according to multiple sources. You were deposed by Alina Habba in the courtroom. She didn't have a great deal of success, and all of the cases pretty much that she represented Donald Trump, she either lost or was sanctioned, or there was another case also where she was involved with, it was the allegations were that she groomed someone at Bedminster, and then that resulted in a lawsuit against Habba being filed, or a potential lawsuit against Habba being filed. I think there was a settlement that was reached there. What's your immediate reaction? My dogs are obviously reacting to it.
Well, they definitely are. So let me just jump in for a quick second. I've been deposed by Alina on several occasions. Let me say that it's an understandable choice by Donald. If you look to see, and I know that there's a photo of the various different people who Donald has now appointed to various different cabinet positions, they all fit the role. As Donald would have said years ago when I was part of his world, that it's central casting. Alina Habba is central casting for the press secretary. He likes the way she looks, he likes the way she speaks, and he likes the fact that she's willing to go toe-to-toe with the press. In fact, she'll go toe-to-toe with anybody to defend him. Even when things are said that are legitimately indefensible, she will come up with a response within which to protect him. And that's all that he wants. You see, that's why Sean Spicer, I had said, was going to be the first to go, and lo and behold, he was the first to go. Why? Because Sean Spicer wasn't Alina Habba. He's not going to turn around and say things that are not exactly accurate simply because that's what they know that Donald wants. She's willing to go that extra mile. And so based upon being mouthy, her looks, the fact that she's a lawyer, she fits perfectly into this position. In fact, if I could just draw an analogy here, think about his pick, Tom Homan, who is going to be the border czar. Tom is a big fella, former New York City police officer, and he says all the right things as it relates to Donald Trump's policy on immigration, mass deportation. He looks the part of somebody that you would see patrolling the border. He just does. And if you've seen that, there are a couple of videos, Ben, of him when he was testifying, and he was going toe-to-toe with AOC. He came right back at it. Each and every one of these people who are getting these positions are people who have fought for him over the past, let's say, 1 year and stayed on his message. And that's what he wants.
Well, let me show you that clip. You mentioned Tom Homan. We've been talking a lot about Trump's plan that he said for bloody, that's his term, bloody. It's going to be bloody mass deportations on day one. Here's Tom Homan at that committee hearing. AOC is asking Homan about the forced separation policy that Homan pioneered, not sure that's the right word, when he was leading ICE in the first Trump administration. Let's watch that interaction. Let's play it.
Through this memo.
You're not the author, but you signed the memo.
Yes, a zero tolerance memo.
So you provided the official recommendation to Secretary Nielsen on for the United States to pursue family separation.
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation was option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the Secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation of the many that you recommended family separation,
I recommend a zero tolerance.
which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Holman, with
family.
all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay.
Now,
So
I wanna
Cohen, I
share
mean,
something, Ben, at the very end, did you see the exasperation on AOC's face? That in and of itself guaranteed that Tom Homan was going to be the director of ICE. There was no doubt in my mind when I saw that he was going to be considered and he would probably make it, because that's what Trump saw. He saw the fact that there was someone there who was willing to go toe-to-toe on his policy and not relent. And that, again, goes right back to the whole issue of playing the role, central casting for what he wants his administration to look like. You see, it's why Alina Habba was not up for Attorney General. He knows that she's not competent to be the Attorney General, but she's more than competent to be press secretary.
well, but then Tom Homan's boss is Kristi Noem, South Dakota governor. So he picked someone there. You know, she's the one who bragged about shooting her dog Cricket. You know, she's someone who doesn't really have any experience when it comes to homeland security type of stuff. I mean, during the campaign, she was serving basically as the moderator for Donald Trump's phony town halls, where she would kind of follow him around. Remember, she was doing the dance moves, you know, with him. I'll give you, you know, my theory. You know, my theory is that Trump thinks that that position's going to take a lot of heat. It will soften to the public from a PR perspective the bloody nastiness of what's going on. If you have Kristi Noem kind of in front of the camera while you have somebody like Tom Homan doing bloody mass deportations and separations, because remember, Homan would then kind of report to her. She's at the top of Homeland Security. So I think that's the dynamic that he's looking for. I get your perspective because, I mean, to have Kristi Noem, the head of Homeland Security, I mean, if you've watched her interviews before and you've seen her on the public stage, I mean, it's all over the place.
Yeah. So again, it goes right into central casting. She has made it crystal clear that her position on Homeland Security is identical. There's not a dot, a comma. There's not a paragraph break that she does not agree with President-elect Trump. She's made it crystal clear, and that she is, and made this crystal clear as well, prepared to accomplish his policy goal on the mass deportation. Plain and simple. She looks the part. She has the congressional background where she claimed that she was involved in this sort of thing. It is, again, a very easy pick. I will tell you, though, I don't think a lot of these people are long-termers. And I'm a little bit shocked, including, by the way, like Marco Rubio, who, for whatever the reason, he ended up giving him, Secretary of State. This is one that blew my mind. In fact, when I saw this come out, Ben, I was actually shocked. Number one, I don't think he looks the part. Take a look at somebody like an Anthony Blinken. He's kind of like central casting, but he's just really competent. I'm not really sure, especially given some of the comments that Marco Rubio has made and Trump has made about Marco Rubio going back just a couple of years. I was very shocked that he elected to bring him into this administration.
I think we have a montage of some of Marco Rubio's statements. Jeremy, this is the one with Trump picking Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State is pretty hilarious. Just take a look at this montage that we've got. Let's play it.
5 days ago, we began to explain to the American people that Donald Trump is a con artist. The party of Lincoln and Reagan and the presidency of the United States will never be held by a con artist. Friends do not let friends vote for con artists. And friends don't let friends vote for con artists.
I can just tell you that a con artist is about to take over the Republican Party and the conservative movement, and we have to put a stop to it. There is no way we are going to allow a con artist to take over the conservative movement, and Donald Trump is a con artist.
So to be clear, Donald Trump.
And by the way, and now he's reporting to this con artist, right? As what do you call it? Secretary of State. Fantastic.
Look, Donald Trump's vice president, in terms of people who have political leaders who have called Donald Trump Hitler. The only one that really comes to mind. There are people who have said he's fascist, he speaks like Hitler, but the one who made the direct "he is America's Hitler" is his own vice president,
vice president-elect. Yeah,
J.D. Vance. Now, his Secretary of State has called him a con artist. Donald Trump made statements about Marco Rubio that I would never even hire Rubio to run any small business, yet alone any Trump business. And now he is the Secretary of State. But I want to rewind a little bit because I think
can I bring up two more points here as it relates to Marco Rubio? All right. So you may remember in 2016, there was an ad that was put out by the Trump campaign, and it was basically turning around calling Marco Rubio corrupt. And it literally went on. It was like a 2.5, 3-minute commercial about all the things that Marco Rubio did that were corrupt. Taking flights, like a dozen flights from Florida, around Florida on his campaign's dime, purchasing certain things. That's not even the worst thing that Trump did to Marco Rubio. Do you remember in the National Enquirer on the front page, we had a photo of Marco Rubio nude in a pool with a bunch of other guys also all nude. And the headline was, it was a wild cocaine bash with, featuring Marco Rubio. I mean, we're not talking about somebody that turned around and said, hey, his rhetoric is vile or something like that. One calls the other guy a con artist. The other one calls the guy corrupt. And now there's a love affair, and the guy is Secretary of State. I don't see lasting relationships with a lot of the picks that have taken place, including the chief of staff. I just don't see with Susie Walsh. Though Susie, let me take that back for a second. I don't think she's going to want to stick it out to 4 years, though I think she has the fortitude to do it. She's been around a long time. She knows the game, and she knows how to handle Trump. The problem with being chief of staff is you have 20 different people that will be part of this, we'll call it executive, right, administration team. And each one of them are going to be pulling at her in order to get certain things. And Trump hates that shit. That's why Reince Priebus had no shot whatsoever.
Cohen, this was the photo, and you specifically used the language, this is what we were doing, because at that time you were on Team Trump. You were involved in a lot of the stuff that was happening there, whether it was with Rubio or Ted Cruz and all of that.
Or Hillary Clinton.
Or Hillary Clinton. You know, before your mea culpa, you were involved in that. And you're right. I mean, I totally forgot about that incident until you said that. your team put out an image of like a gay orgy bubble bath, and then there was an arrow pointed to someone who Trump claimed was Marco Rubio, which you couldn't even see, and then there was an arrow pointing to that, and that was one of the things that tanked Marco Rubio, and that was the photo, right? That's the one that you're thinking of.
It most certainly is, Mo. It most certainly is.
And that guy's the Secretary of State right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the same way I read Matt Whitaker, who I guess is being considered to be Attorney General. There was this article in GQ from 2018 that talks about before Whitaker kind of rose up the MAGA ranks, Whitaker would sell all of these like things, and one of the things he sold was allegedly like a toilet bowl for men with gigantic balls, and like that's what his job. It's like a Larry David episode. He sold toilet bowls for men with giant balls.
Boy, have we really digressed on this political beatdown with our brigaders. I'll tell you that.
These are, I think, important throwbacks and callbacks. So like we know what we're dealing with. Yeah, this is what I was not making this up. Good. I'm glad that Jeremy gave me at least evidentiary support for what I was just saying. Trump's new attorney general has a long history of absurd scams. From November 15, 28 GQ by Jay Willis. Matthew Whitaker served on the board. It's interesting they need a board of directors for this. A board of a company that courted investors in time travel cryptocurrencies, Bigfoot dolls, and toilets designed for well-endowed men. Now, Cohen, what do you think that board? All right, we're hereby calling a board meeting. Whitaker, can you lead the board meeting? Everybody, we're assembled here at our biannual board meeting. We are determining whether or not the toilet seat should be 17 inches off the ground. I mean, this guy. I
don't think it has to do with being off the ground.
And
it really has to do more with the shape of the bowl, right? Because that's what it's really all about.
Is that what it's all about, Michael?
Yeah,
all right, I'm glad you clarified that that's what it's all about. All right, you see, I was going to say, let me rewind to the beginning and talk about some serious stuff right here.
By the way, but I think this is very serious. We can try to be a little jovial during this time that everybody is sort of anxious. It's something that I'm going to be talking about with Fred Wellman, who's part of the Midas Touch Network as well, on my Mea Culpa. That's the one with the blue background. But we talk about that where, obviously, if you're MAGA, you are elated at this now second term of Trump. If, in fact, you are Team Kamala, you're obviously very concerned and you're worried and many other emotions. One of the things that, we talk about, and I don't want to ruin the episode for you, but one of the things is that you must believe that the system will not allow one person to do what that person claims that he can do, like rewrite the Constitution or destroy the tripartite system of government or ram through all of these appointments and so on. There is a system that needs to be adhered to. And I guess that's really the hope. But each and every one of these picks so far, I just am concerned that they will not respect the process. They will not respect the rule of law that guides every other, whether it's attorney general or whether it's chief of staff or whether it's press secretary. There are certain rules that have been followed for 249 years, and the hope is that these folks will take the job seriously on behalf of the country and not in fealty to any one individual, if in fact that individual requests it.
Look, hope springs eternal, but I think it's important already that we call out promises broken. By the way, if the promises are kept, you can call them out too, but in terms of promises broken, right? Trump said that within 24 hours of winning, not of being sworn in, he said of winning, that he would call up, remember he said this, Vladimir Putin and Zelensky. And he said, I would tell this guy this thing, and I would tell this guy this thing, and I would say, you do this, and I'd say, you do this, Putin, and I'd have it all done, and I'd have it all done within 24 hours. Well, that didn't happen. In fact, Donald Trump leaked to the Washington Post that he has spoken with Putin. Now, if you think Putin is interested in reciprocity, right, and goodwill, and Donald Trump's team is leaking that he had a call with Putin, don't you think Putin, in the spirit of reciprocity, would say, we did have a call, it was productive? No. Pull that up. The Kremlin has said, we don't know what he's talking about. It's absolutely pure fiction. Phone call didn't happen. What else did they do in Russia? And again, this is not getting mainstream play. It's why we have to build our media platform as well. After Donald Trump saying that he told the Russian leader not to escalate in Ukraine, what did Putin do? Escalated, amassed an additional 50,000 soldiers, including North Korean troops, ahead of a counteroffensive right after that call took place, and did a lot of other very kind of furtive moves showing an escalation as well, like clear escalation taking place. And then Putin has Russian national TV show these photographs of Melania, the nudes, and they were just laughing. You know how Donald Trump, and they did this on purpose, right? Because they said, Trump goes, I hate when people laugh at me. The world's laughing at me. They're laughing. So what does Putin have his people do at the Russian state media? Laugh at him. And what more way can you disrespect like a man, like an alpha man? I mean, there's probably other ways, but what more ways can you disrespect him than showing nudes of the man's wife and then laughing hysterically and then saying, oh, I guess it's her body, her choice, as they're laughing on Russian state media, all after Donald Trump claimed he was having productive conversations with Vladimir Putin. I want to talk about that and more.
Yeah,
we got our first quick ad break that we got to take, but I know you're ready to go. I know the brigaders want to hear from you. Let's take our first quick break of the show.
It's hot outside, and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend that you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA, and they use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so that you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. And you know what? They feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some five-star hotels. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature, again, all night long, no matter the weather, so that you get better sleep every single night. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7%. Get a look, 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. So there's no more gross odors too. Go to trymiracle.com/beat to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code BEAT, B-E-A-T, at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save, get a load of this, an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Now upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. And go to trymiracle.com/beat and use the code BEAT to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/beat to treat yourself And thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us. But what about those fears that don't involve zombies or ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them. Because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing your fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. You see, you all know that I've been through a lot. Yeah, and that's an understatement, my friends. So trust me when I say that I've benefited from therapy, and it's helped me because I've become the best version of myself. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. And that's all that you can want to be. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just go and you fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So overcome your fears with BetterHelp. And visit betterhelp.com/beatdown today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/beatdown. Go there now.
Great ad reads right there, Michael Cohen, and appreciate our pro-democracy sponsors. They help make this show possible. Before the break, I was talking about, is Donald Trump going to keep these promises? You know, he ran on, I'm going to be tough with Putin, and I'm going to call him on day one, and I'm going to call Zelensky on day one after the election. And I'm going to say, you do this, you do this. So
That's
Trump
what I
claims
wanted
he
to bring
called
up.
Putin. He leaked it to the Washington Post that this conversation happened. And then Putin, giving the middle finger back, said, pure fiction, phone call didn't happen. In fact, he goes, I'm going to then direct Russian state TV to show Melania nudes and then laugh at Melania and Donald Trump to their faces. And then I'm going to escalate in Ukraine to show Donald Trump that I'm the alpha here. And then Cohen, to make matters even worse or more obvious, then his senior aide releases a message, a communique across all Russian TV saying the following, quote, to achieve success in the elections, Donald Trump relied on certain forces to which he has corresponding obligations. And as a responsible person, he will be obliged to fulfill them. And that came from the chairman of Russia's Maritime College and a close Putin aide. So that wouldn't happen without Putin giving the green light to that. Nikolai Patrushev puts that out. So Putin sending a message here. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I do want to turn around and say, as it relates to Russia and Putin and Ukraine and Israel and Hamas and the mass deportation and so on. If you look at the historical waves, the dips and the troughs in regard to these elections, this was an anger vote at where we are as a country right now, despite the fact that many of us believe that Joe Biden and Democrats have done a pretty fantastic job over the course of the last 4 years. So what ends up happening in the midterms, you'll see, is basically it becomes a referendum on how much Trump is going to be successful in fulfilling the pledges that he made during the campaign. And this historically happens. It goes, and you can look it up yourself. You'll see every 2 years when they have the congressional, you will see that there's always a change, whether it's the House or the Senate, unless, of course, the president is successful in a plethora of policies or promises that they made during the campaign that they ultimately fulfill. And I believe that the very first promise that Donald Trump will put out there, because I do know from some insiders that they intend on over 24 executive orders that he intends to come right to the White House with on day number one of which is the mass deportation. And this is where, you're going to have Homan and Kristi Noem are going to have to really step up and so on. Now, if that doesn't end up going as expected, you can expect Trump to demonstrate his anger towards them, right? And it's a very precarious situation for them to be. I wanted just to say one last thing, Ben, when you turn around and you're talking about Political Beatdown and whether it's Mea Culpa or whether it's any of the other products that you find here on the Midas Touch Network, a lot of people are really kind of burnt out right now as a direct result of all the, we'll call it mishigas that's been going on, all the tumult that's been going on over the course of the past year plus regarding the elections and with the divisiveness, the rhetoric, and so on. I want to second what Ben said. This is not the time to sit on the sidelines. This isn't the time to start to unsubscribe, whether it's Political Beatdown or my YouTube channel or the Michael Cohen Show or any, again, of the other products here. This is the time that you want to dig in, because the more factual information that you're going to get, and that's the only thing you're going to get here on this Midas Touch Network, are facts. No innuendo, pure up facts. And the scary part is when you start to see things like, these mainstream newspapers or television or cable news not actually providing the legitimate truth or spinning it in ways that are not legitimate. They do that so that they'll make sure that they're on the list to get a interview with the president or the vice president or Alina Habba as press secretary. They're willing to do things like that. We don't do that. And we also don't have sponsors, as Ben was talking about, where we become beholden to changing our tune, to changing our truth. And that's why organizations like Midas Touch Network will continue to grow day in and day out.
I did a whole segment on this, Michael Cohen, that after the election, David Zaslav, who's the chairman of Warner Discovery, he was basically saying, look, now that Trump won and Warner Discovery owns CNN, we're going to have this great age of mergers and acquisitions. We're going to unleash all these corporate mergers and we'll be able to finally do the things that we wanted to do. And Zaslav had made a comment like that when he was in Sun Valley in Idaho at this Allen and Company convention several months back that I highlighted, where it seemed that he was rooting for Donald Trump. And that seemed, in my own opinion, to permeate CNN's coverage. So I had to do some digging, though, and I had to see, okay, then there must have been, was Zaslav trying to do a merger during the Biden administration that didn't work? That Biden blocked, and that now he's saying these things. So I look back, and lo and behold, though, the very merger that gave Zaslav control over CNN took place April 2022, when Biden was in office. The merger between Discovery and Warner was approved. The issue was the merger wasn't all that successful, not because it was Biden's fault, but because people stopped watching CNN's coverage. So they had all of these assets like HBO Max and Discovery that was doing good. They thought that they could buy CNN and turn it like Fox Light or make it like a Fox News and then grow it, but people weren't buying it. So the merger was bad, and they actually called the CNN company, they call it Shitco internally, as though Shitco is the CNN linear assets. So then it became clear to me. So basically what you're saying, Zaslav, is you were paid tens of millions of dollars every year. You did the merger during the time when Biden was in office. The merger didn't go as planned because Biden was no drama. And now you're saying, oh, it must have been Biden's fault. And I don't mean to single Zaslav out, but I think that is something that we've seen over and over again with lots of different groups as well, that they tried to just play the blame game over and over again. And again, I'm not I'm not doing the post-mortem blame thing here, but I simply say, and I repeat this, this is where a political party where you have a great story to tell about accomplishments really needs to step up and tell that story. I mean, look, you want to talk about the unemployment rate is the lowest since 1968. Inflation at 2.2, which is below average, normal inflation that was brought under control by Biden. GDP growth, the best in the world. Financial markets under Biden soaring. Biden actually cut the deficit. We've had a manufacturing boom. I mean, you can just take a look at the charts. I mean, if you look at the charts under total construction spending under Trump, just take a look at it. It's flat, it's level. Under Biden, look at the ingenuity of America that was unleashed. The manufacturing boom is felt across the country in the infrastructure projects that were going up. So as I've said before, Biden understood the pulse of the nation. He understood the moment. It's why he delivered infrastructure, bottom up, middle out, economics, why he focused his tax programs on helping middle class and people aspiring to be in middle class, not the billionaires. But Cohen, the billionaires, the oligarchs, they were very instrumental in letting people know that even despite all of these metrics, that people's struggles post-COVID, which we have to acknowledge those struggles are real, were Biden's fault versus the fact that people coming out of a pandemic catastrophic event, it's going to take time to heal. And people cannibalized Biden versus uplifted the message. He's clearly not the messenger he was before.
But what they did, Ben, what they did is they ignored every single thing that you just showed on that chart. And they leapfrogged it with things like gas, the cost of eggs, milk, bacon. Remember when Trump had that whole table of food outside, I think it was Bedminster, his golf course in Bedminster, showing that nobody could afford what's on this table here. And that was the message that they kept hammering home. You see, look, let's just not bullshit one another here. There's no bullshit on Midas Touch Network, and definitively not on Political Beatdown. The Democrats, we fucked up. Our messaging has always been shit. And say whatever you want about Donald Trump, many things that you could say about him. One thing he is, hands down, he is the master of media manipulation. What they do is every single one of their 100 different speakers and their different messengers, they all get the identical talking points memo every single morning at 8 a.m. And they turn around and they say, if you are going to speak and you're going to go on television or speak to media, just hit reply back, I'm going on so-and-so where, and use these talking points for today. So now what happens? You have 100 different messengers every single day on the identical point. Whereas in the Democrat group, you have hundreds of messengers, but nobody is on point with anybody else. It's everybody sort of doing their own thing, answering questions. It's why if you listen to some of the responses by, I'll give you an example. What's his name? He just got offered a position as well. The Congress member from New York.
Lee Zeldin.
Lee Zeldin. They ask Lee Zeldin a question, and the response goes right to oil and drilling and the economy. It's as polar opposite if I turn around and say black versus white or north versus south. He didn't answer the question at all because that wasn't part of the talking points memo. They absolutely hammered everything home, and those comments and the talking points get regurgitated over and over and over and then over again, where ultimately, even if it's a lie, as Stalin used to say, if you repeat the lie enough times, the lie ultimately becomes the truth.
And let me show you, for example, here was a Latino Trump voter on CNN recently. He's wearing the Trump hat. He wears the like yellow hair Trump wig. I thought that was the guy's real hair at first. It's the Trump wig that he's wearing. And he says, look, we're not going to get deported. I'm family oriented, and they're only going to go after the criminals. They're not coming after me. Here, play this clip.
If they let in hundreds or thousands of people who already have criminal records, if deporting them creates a mass deportation, I'm all for it.
But what if rounded up in all of that are people who work on a farm? They're doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do. Does that worry you?
That wouldn't be fair. Of course, they need to make sure that they don't throw away, they don't kick out, they don't deport people that are family oriented.
The question.
They won't kick out.
Mistake. Again, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but it's important. It's part of the talking points memo that everybody got. Make sure you refer to all the illegal immigrants as criminals, rapists, drug dealers, murderers, and so on. People coming in from insane asylums. This man, who clearly has a diminished IQ based upon his commentary, is merely regurgitating the stupidity that he heard over and over and over again based upon whoever it was and whatever source that he's obtaining his information from. Again, it is all the same talking point. And now you have another person who's out there spewing it. That's the name of the game.
Well, look, but now that they've got his vote, right? They don't have to do the charade anymore. They could go and say what they're going to do, right? And so,
Right.
So Charlie Kirk, who is in Donald Trump's inner circle, he said the following about Tom Homan, who's now the border czar. He said, Tom Homan announces he will begin workplace immigration raids. If you are illegal, get out of our country now. It will save us time and energy and also spare you the humiliation. The days of gaming America's immigration system with impunity are over. Get out. If you just break down that statement, what they're saying they're going to do, workplace immigration raids, meaning they're going to go to places where migrants are working, construction sites, farms, restaurants like that guy was in, and they're going to say, show us your papers. And then the people are going to say, I don't know. I thought it was family oriented. And then they're going to throw you in cages, and then they're going to take you out of the country. And as even Donald Trump said, he said he was going to send the Haitians to Venezuela. Like, he's going to send you to random countries. And that's what's going to happen. And I just want you to think from just a practical standpoint. Workplace immigration raids. Just think about the mere threat of that, the disruption that's going to cause. If people in their workplaces are going, am I going to get raided today? Should I even show up to my work today? I'm not a criminal. By the way, Cohen, you, me, I don't know anybody who I talk to who thinks, you know what, the criminals need to stay here. The terrorists need to stay here. Deport the criminals, terrorists yesterday. Get them out, lock them up. We don't want criminals. We don't want terrorists. We also have to acknowledge, though, that
you bring up such a great point here. It's a phenomenal point. Number one, just because Donald and the talking points tell you that they're rapists, murderers, drug dealers, that they're all, from insane asylums, doesn't make it accurate. All right. A bunch of our brigaders, and many of whom are now, trolls. You don't believe that Donald Trump is going to actually do a mass deportation. Let me be very, very clear. I know him better than everybody. I know him better than any of the, including the people like a Tom Homan, including Kristi Noem. I know him better than them all. And I'm telling you for a fact, that's the first bill that he's putting forth. Why? Because he could then continue to ride that deportation as being responsive, and actually doing what he said he was going to do on the campaign trail. It goes even one step further. Do I think it's going to be the 10 million that they were talking about? And so the answer is no, no. He's immediately going to go for the low-hanging fruit. And who's the low-hanging fruit? They're the migrants that are staying in hotels that are already in the system. We know exactly who they are. We know exactly where they are at all hours. They're basically confined to these hotels until such time as the immigration process works. They will send buses, load them up, drive them, or fly them to their country of origin. That way he can declare a victory. Now, you and I and others may turn around and say, but that's not a victory. That's a terrible, terrible thing. I assure you, his supporters, and obviously it's more than 50.1% of this country believe. In fact, it's actually closer to 68% of this country believe that all the migrants should be deported. Imagine that number. It's an enormously high number. He will now hit a home run with that almost 70% of this country. It'll be a home run for him. And that's what they're going to do. Mark my words on it.
Well, the only part that I disagree with you there is perhaps in his base, they'll view that as a home run temporarily. But like all of these ideas, shut down the Department of Education, shut down the border, shut down the government. It's easy to be a destroyer, right? It's easy for me to take this cup and just throw it on the floor, right? It's hard for me to produce and develop something and build systems and institutions. It's easy to destroy. Okay, shut down the border. Okay, well, you shut it down. Guess what? How are we going to get the products that are being manufactured, say, in Tijuana at cheaper prices into other factories at America, where you take those products, you combine it with other stuff, and then you make things here? How do we send our products into Mexico? How do we bring other products and produce from South America if you just shut down a border? What is that going to cause? Economic devastation. Remember one day where Texas Governor Abbott tried to shut it down by doing inspections of the vehicles. It caused literally tens of billions of dollars in damages. So at a practical level, there will be massive economic turmoil if and when they do that. Shut down the government. Okay, well, people don't get their checks. You don't get your services. And shutting down the government results in economic catastrophe, recession, and depression. Shut down the Department of Education. That may be something that sounds wonderful to people in certain red states until all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, where's the lunches? Where's the food for my kids? I now have to go back to the grocery stores where, by the way, the prices are higher because you've now deported the migrants who are helping get the goods there in the first place. And by the way, you've tariffed ourselves. You're not tariffing China. You're putting taxes on goods here. So now I have to pay for higher prices, and there's no kind of food assistance programs at our schools. Then what, Cohen? And I just think, look, I don't want any of those things to happen, but what we have to be prepared for is when they happen to let people know where to direct your anger, because I damn sure promise you Republicans are going to do what they always do. They take the economic gains made by Democrats, Obama, Clinton, and now Biden, they sink it. They're the arsonists. And then once America wakes up, they then blame the Democrats who are now trying to rebuild and fix. And every time Democrats fall right back into the trap, because rather than unite and have a strong message and let people know what's the cause, they buy into all the right-wing crap. They're being worked and they get worked, and then they change their message so that they try to look like Republicans or MAGAs versus looking like how they should, which is caring for the people. We've got a 1-minute break. We'll be right back. We got to throw it to our pro-democracy sponsor, but Cohen and I will be right back. I'm fired up on this episode. Let's take a quick break.
Waiting for dinner? Spice things up a little bit with Golden Nugget Online Casino. With hundreds of the hottest games, Golden Nugget lets you live it up in the downtime on classics like Cleopatra or exclusive games only found on Golden Nugget Online Casino. So forget about waiting. Golden Nugget keeps the action rolling while your dinner simmers. And right now, new players can get $50 instantly in casino credits. And all you have to do is sign up with code BEATDOwn and deposit just $5. $5 to get 50 in casino credits. Make any moment golden. You have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. And please play responsibly. 21 plus, physically present in Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia only. Void in Ontario. One per new customer. Minimum $5 deposit. Max $50 issued in non-withdrawable casino credits that expire in 168 hours. See terms at goldennuggetcasino.com/welcome.
Thank you to our pro-democracy sponsors.
Hey,
Appreciate
Ben,
them.
can I just jump in for one very quick second? Sorry about
Jump in
that.
for more than a quick second.
Time is fleeing. A bunch of the, again, comments that were coming through say, where did you get your information from on the 64, 65% up to 70%? Here's an article, by the way, from Forbes. It's entitled, Do Americans Really Want to Deport 11 Million Undocumented Immigrants? It's by Andy Smodiak. And in this specific article, it just says, in fact, 62% of Americans are now in favor of deportations, with some Latinos and Hispanic voters also voicing their support. And it's the first time in modern history such a vast deportation effort is no longer an outlying opinion, but, get a load of this one, but a mainstream stance in American politics. Like I said to you before, it's why I'm going to continuously say this, and you may get tired of hearing it. This is not the time to step away. This is the time to step in, to dig your heels in and stay part of the conversation. Because here on Political Beatdown, here on the Midas Touch Network, on my Michael Cohen YouTube show, on Mea Culpa, on all of the Midas Touch family products, there's nothing but facts. I'm not basing it like others do by pulling it out of my ass. This is written by Forbes. I remember just reading it, and that's only one article. If you search yourself, you'll see that it goes up to like 68+% of the country is in favor of these mass deportations.
Cohen, let me give you some data too, which is the updated election results. So people actually see how close it was. I mean, it's not like seeing these results are going to make any of us feel any better. But at the end of the day, it seems that Harris will have 75.7 million votes, or 48.5%. Trump will have 77.9 million votes, or 49.9%. Other 2.6 million votes, or 1.6%. So if that's the case, Donald Trump wouldn't even be clearing 50%. And so some of the questions are, who are some of these voters that flipped? And some of the voters that flipped were actually Gen Z, boys and girls, young men and young women, who, so you and I were talking about several months ago, how the right-wing podcast culture, gaming, all of that pushed people, in a direction. Trump showing up at the UFC fights, football players doing the Trump dance thing. That has permeated culture, and to ignore that ignores, I think, one of the lessons. And again, if you look at the results, pretty close, but you flip that, which went overwhelmingly for Biden, you have a lot of votes there. You have, of course, the flip in the Latino votes as well, almost a complete opposite shift in Latino men this time, favoring Donald Trump over Vice President Kamala Harris. And look, also in places like Scranton and similar cities across the country, Donald Trump was picking up these union worker votes who were voting, against their jobs or their unions. But he was saying to them, I'm going to save you. All these promises. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to save you. I'm the only one who can do it. So it's not without irony when I look at a Teamsters post like this one, where they're talking about how the Costco fleet drivers, represented by Teamsters Local 174, we've ratified a short-term collective bargaining agreement set to expire on January 31st, 2025, the same date as the Costco National Master Agreement, which protects over 18,000 Costco Teamsters nationwide. Well, it's not without irony that you look at that, because what do you think is going to happen when the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, is all full of the Trumpers who are pro-management, where you can't express your collectively bargained for rights? They don't believe in collective bargaining, at all in the Trump administration. It's all going to be anti-labor people. Whereas President Biden worked to negotiate these types of master deals, that's not going to happen under the Trump administration. At what point, though, Cohen, I give you another example. Donald Trump's appointed Mike Huckabee to be his ambassador to Israel. Huckabee says he doesn't think the West Bank should even exist. He goes, it's not a thing. Israel basically should, take it all over themselves. We've seen from kind of senior Israeli people attached to Netanyahu just in the past 48 hours, them basically insinuating that West Bank and other territories controlled by Palestinians need to be annexed right away. And then I see these letters from, Arab American groups in Dearborn, Michigan, who voted for Donald Trump and in the aggregate helped tip the scales, as they acknowledge in this letter, saying, all right, Donald, now it's time for you to call for the ceasefire. Well, not only is Donald not calling for a ceasefire, he brought in Huckabee, he brought in Rubio, who believe there shouldn't be a ceasefire at all. So just regardless of what your views are on the situation, we should be clear-eyed that on the one hand, Kamala Harris and Biden were at least pushing for a ceasefire, and you can make a lot of criticisms and have a lot of strong feelings, but on the one hand, they were doing that. And all I saw were the protests at Kamala rallies and Biden events and events where Democrat speakers. I don't see any of these protests happening at the Trump events, when Donald Trump just here. Do we have this video of Huckabee? Like, just so you see the receipts. Huckabee's now the ambassador to Israel. Huckabee says this. Here, play this clip.
My feelings personally, and I'm speaking only as a person, I think Israel would only be acting on the property it already owns. I think Israel has title deed to Judea and Samaria. There are certain words I refuse to use. There is no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. There's no such thing as a settlement. They're communities, they're neighborhoods, they're cities. There's no such thing as an occupation.
That they get out of their minds that people are living in lean-tos and tents, and sleeping in cars, circled around a tree. They're living in very well-designed and beautiful cities and communities. Can't wait to get back. I'm going to take an extra hat. I'm going to get it to President-elect Trump. Build Israel great again. Who knows? We may see him wear this out there in one of his rallies somewhere. I don't know. Can't promise that. I can only promise he will get a copy of the hat. Thank you very much.
And so again, Cohen, as we close out this episode, I think it's important to note, though, also why, and again, it is a little bit, self-whatever that I'm saying this, self-serving that I'm saying this, about our network. But, I guarantee you that if this was Biden, because I know what happens, if these incredible lies are already occurring, that would get wall-to-wall coverage. All I'm seeing, I don't even watch corporate media, but when people forward me stuff, is this like bizarro North Korea propaganda. Elon Musk showed up at Mar-a-Lago wearing a dark MAGA shirt, and it was wild. And then he was hanging out with Trump's granddaughter, and they were laughing. And it's like, okay, can you please stick to the freaking issues? Here are the things. Call them out, because already